The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the small town in New Mexico. Vibrant banners fluttered in the gentle breeze, announcing the annual local festival. I had looked forward to this trip, hoping it would rekindle some sense of connection within my family. With my husband and stepson by my side, I envisioned laughter and shared moments, but instead, I felt like a ghost drifting through our vacation. As we arrived at the quaint hotel, the scent of roasted green chiles wafted through the air. The lobby was bustling with families checking in and out, their excited chatter blending with the soft strumming of a guitar from a nearby corner. My husband handled the check-in while I stood to the side, feeling invisible among the lively crowd. When we finally received our room keys, an unexpected mix-up occurred. Instead of sharing a room with my husband as planned, I found myself assigned to a room with my stepson. My heart raced at the thought. It was uncharted territory for both of us. As we entered our space, a cozy room adorned with rustic furniture and bright southwestern art, I felt an odd mix of anticipation and anxiety. "Guess we'll have to make do," he said lightly, trying to ease any tension that might linger in the air. I forced a smile, but inside, I grappled with feelings that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. My husband's indifference had left me feeling neglected and overlooked. He had become consumed by work and routine, leaving me to wander through life like a shadow. As night fell over the town, we ventured out to explore the festival. The streets were alive with music and laughter, vendors sold handmade crafts and local delicacies. I watched families gather around food stalls while children darted between colorful booths. A part of me longed to join them fully, to feel connected and alive again. "Do you remember those summer fairs?" my stepson asked as we strolled past a booth selling cotton candy. I nodded absently, memories flooding back, warm nights filled with laughter and carefree joy before life became complicated. "Yeah," I replied softly. "Those were good times." He glanced at me sideways, his expression contemplative as if he sensed something unspoken hanging between us. The moment lingered longer than it should have before we moved on through the crowd. Later that evening, back in our hotel room, I sat on one bed while he settled on another across from me. The walls felt thin, every sound from outside crept into our space like an unwelcome guest. We shared stories about our day. His excitement about winning a carnival game echoed against my quiet reflections about family dynamics. As he spoke animatedly about his prize, a stuffed animal wearing a sombrero, I noticed how his eyes sparkled with youthful enthusiasm. It reminded me of days gone by when everything seemed simpler and brighter. "Do you think your dad is having fun?" he asked suddenly. I shrugged, unsure how to answer without revealing too much of my own discontentment. "He's probably just tired," I replied vaguely. The conversation shifted back to light-hearted banter until an unexpected silence enveloped us both. It was then that something shifted in me, a realization that this connection felt different from what I had anticipated when planning this trip. A fleeting glance turned into something more as our eyes locked for an instant too long, an electric charge that made my heart race unnaturally fast. Panic surged within me as I quickly broke away from his gaze. It was just a momentary lapse fueled by loneliness or perhaps nostalgia for better days gone by. "Let's get some fresh air," I suggested hastily, desperate to escape whatever tension had begun to weave itself between us. We stepped outside into the cool night air where laughter echoed down the street from festival-goers enjoying live music under twinkling lights strung across buildings like stars fallen from heaven. For a moment, everything felt alive again, my heart beat in sync with the rhythm of happiness surrounding us. Yet despite all this vibrancy around us, I couldn't shake off feelings of isolation creeping back in like shadows at dusk. As we walked side by side down cobblestone streets filled with laughter and joy around us but silence between us, I contemplated how easily connections could slip away when one feels unseen or unheard within their own life. Returning to our hotel room later that night brought back an unsettling reality. The boundaries between familial affection and something deeper began blurring ever so slightly under dim lights casting long shadows across worn wooden floors. With every passing second spent together alone behind closed doors, the weight of unspoken desires grew heavier on my chest until finally succumbing under pressure became inevitable. I found myself leaning closer toward him without thinking, our breaths mingling as curiosity danced dangerously close to crossing lines never meant to be crossed until suddenly there it was. A fleeting kiss sparked by unresolved feelings ignited under soft moonlight spilling through sheer curtains framing our moment together like art against canvas. But just as quickly as it began, reality crashed back down upon us when footsteps echoed down hallways outside our door reminding me harshly of who we were supposed to be, not what this fleeting moment suggested. In that fragile instant filled with longing yet clouded by guilt, I realized everything was about to change forever. The rain began to pour heavily, drumming against the window, creating a rhythm that felt both ominous and oddly comforting. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil brewing within me. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart racing as the warmth of our earlier encounter lingered in the air. The room felt smaller somehow, as if the walls were closing in on the secrets we were now harboring. He was across the room, looking out at the rain-soaked world beyond. I watched him, his silhouette framed by the dim light filtering through the curtains. The way he stood there, lost in thought, made my pulse quicken again. This was not how a family vacation was supposed to feel, yet here we were, tangled in something neither of us had planned. "Do you think it will let up soon?" he asked, breaking the silence. His voice was low and cautious, as if he were afraid to disturb whatever fragile connection had formed between us. "I hope so," I replied softly. We had plans for tonight. The local festival was supposed to be our highlight, a chance to enjoy food stalls and music under twinkling lights. Now it seemed like a distant memory overshadowed by this unexpected intimacy. I glanced at my phone. No messages from my husband yet. Perhaps he was enjoying his time away from us too much to check in. As we waited for the storm to pass, an awkward tension settled over us. The kiss we shared earlier hung between us like a fragile thread, something beautiful yet precarious. I wondered how long this moment could last before reality intruded again. "Do you think they'll cancel it?" he asked, turning back toward me with an earnest look that tugged at something deep inside. "Maybe," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But it's just rain." He stepped closer then, his eyes searching mine for answers that neither of us could articulate. The air crackled with unspoken words and hidden desires that felt both thrilling and terrifying. "I never thought," he started but trailed off, uncertainty clouding his expression. "What?" I prompted gently. "I never thought we'd end up like this," he admitted, taking another step closer until there was barely any space left between us. I nodded slowly, feeling a mix of emotions swirl within me, guilt battled with a longing that had been buried for too long. Neither did I. The sound of thunder rumbled ominously outside as if echoing my inner conflict. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, caught between desire and reality, until suddenly he reached out and brushed his fingers against my arm. It sent shivers down my spine. "We kissed," he murmured almost incredulously as if saying it aloud made it more real than before. In that moment of vulnerability, something shifted within me, a surge of courage mingled with fear. "What do we do now?" I asked quietly. His brow furrowed slightly as if contemplating our next steps carefully. "I don't know," he replied honestly. Just then, a loud crash of thunder shook the room and startled us both back into awareness of our surroundings. The mundane hotel room filled with memories of family vacations past suddenly felt suffocatingly small again. "We should probably check on everyone," I suggested reluctantly as reality beckoned me back from this precipice we had teetered upon together moments before. He nodded slowly but didn't move away just yet. Instead, his gaze lingered on mine with an intensity that made my heart race anew. It took everything in me not to lean forward again, to bridge that gap once more, but duty called louder than desire at that moment. We both turned towards the door simultaneously, the unspoken agreement hanging heavy in the air between us, and stepped into a world where everything remained unchanged, or so it seemed. The hallway outside was darkened by shadows cast from flickering lights above, water dripped from ceiling tiles where leaks had formed over time, a reminder of how fragile even our most solid foundations could be when storms raged around them. As we made our way toward the common area where family members gathered during inclement weather, it struck me how easily things could unravel if anyone caught wind of what transpired behind closed doors only moments before. Laughter echoed down another corridor, voices mingled with sounds of raindrops pattering against windows like applause for secrets kept hidden away from prying eyes and judgmental hearts alike. My husband's laughter rang out among those gathered, bright and carefree, as if nothing weighed heavily upon him at all, while here I stood teetering on an emotional tightrope stretched thin over chasms filled with uncertainty about what lay ahead. When we finally entered the room filled with familiar faces, everyone huddled together under blankets watching old movies while sipping hot cocoa, I felt myself slip back into my role seamlessly despite everything that had transpired moments ago. "Hey! You too," my husband called out cheerfully as soon as he spotted us approaching, his smile wide enough to light up even this dreary evening despite being miles away from home. "We thought you'd gotten swept away," one relative teased playfully while others chuckled along good-naturedly without any clue about what lingered beneath surface smiles shared among family members gathered here tonight. I forced laughter along with them but couldn't shake off feeling like an imposter playing pretend within this web woven tightly around expectations placed upon me long before this trip ever began. As night deepened outside, the storm continued its relentless assault. I couldn't help but glance sideways toward him occasionally, catching glimpses exchanged over cups filled with cocoa brimming over frothy edges, just waiting for someone brave enough to take that first sip. But underneath layers built up over years spent navigating life together, I sensed something shifting beneath our feet, like tectonic plates shifting restlessly, waiting for earthquakes to strike unannounced when least expected. And then suddenly, I caught sight through glass doors leading out onto balconies overlooking city streets below where rain fell steadily, creating rivers winding their way through town. A flash illuminated everything, briefly revealing shadows lurking just beyond reach. What lay ahead remained uncertain, but one thing became clearer than ever: whatever happened next would change everything forever. The rain continued to fall, a steady rhythm that matched the turmoil swirling inside me. I sat on the edge of the bed, the sheets still warm from moments shared in whispered tones and stolen glances. The air felt thick with unspoken words, and guilt began to seep in, shadowing the fleeting joy of our earlier connection. I had always prided myself on being a good wife, a devoted stepmother. Yet here I was, entangled in something that felt both exhilarating and wrong. The thrill of our secret lingered in the air like incense, intoxicating yet suffocating. I couldn't help but replay the moment in my mind, how we had leaned closer under the dim light, how our lips met in a rush of confusion and longing. The festival outside pulsed with life. Laughter and music floated through the open window. It seemed so distant from my reality, where I sat cloaked in uncertainty. Each drop of rain against the glass was a reminder of my choices, each echo reverberating through my conscience. I had stepped into uncharted territory without a map, and now I stood at a precipice. As I gathered my thoughts, there was a knock at the door. My heart raced as I looked toward it, half expecting it to be him again, my stepson, bringing with him that familiar mix of excitement and dread. Instead, it was an old friend from my past who had come for a surprise visit to town. Her cheerful voice cut through my haze. "Hey! Are you in there? It's been ages." I hesitated before opening the door. The last thing I needed was for anyone to see me like this, caught between two worlds, one foot still planted firmly in family life while the other danced precariously on forbidden ground. "Just a minute," I called out, quickly smoothing my hair and adjusting my clothes as if they could somehow mask what had just transpired. When I opened the door, she beamed at me with an enthusiasm that felt foreign amidst my turmoil. "You look great. Let's grab some coffee and catch up." I forced a smile and stepped outside into the corridor where her presence felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. We made our way down to the bustling cafe nearby. As we walked side by side through streets lined with vibrant market stalls filled with colorful crafts and fragrant spices, her chatter helped distract me from spiraling thoughts. "So how's married life treating you?" she asked casually as we settled into a cozy corner booth. I hesitated before answering. "It's fine," I replied cautiously. "Busy as always." She raised an eyebrow knowingly but didn't press further. Instead, she shared stories about her own life, her career ups and downs, while I tried to focus on her words rather than what lay behind those hotel room doors. But then came an unexpected turn when she casually mentioned seeing my husband earlier that day at another cafe across town with someone else, a woman whose name she didn't know but described as young and lively. My heart sank as her words settled over me like heavy fog. "He seemed happy," she added lightly, oblivious to how those simple words struck deep within me. I forced myself to respond nonchalantly despite feeling exposed under her gaze. "Oh really? That's interesting." "Yeah. You should check it out sometime." She smiled brightly but it felt hollow against the backdrop of rising tension within me. As we talked more about mundane things, the weather shifting from rain to sunshine, the weight of her revelation lingered heavily on my mind like an ominous cloud threatening another storm. When we finally parted ways after coffee, I walked back toward the hotel slowly, lost in thought about what this meant for me and for us as a family unit. What did it mean if he sought happiness elsewhere? Did he even notice how invisible I felt? Upon returning to our room, uncertainty clung to me like damp clothes after being caught in a downpour. The atmosphere inside felt charged, every corner held echoes of laughter shared just hours before, a stark contrast to what now loomed ahead. He hadn't returned yet. Perhaps he was still lost somewhere amidst his own distractions or entanglements, or maybe he simply preferred that over facing whatever lay between us now. I sank onto the bed again, memories flooded back unbidden, moments spent together during family gatherings or quiet evenings watching movies, laughter shared over dinner tables now tinged with bittersweetness given recent events. In that moment of solitude enveloped by shadows dancing across walls cast by fading daylight outside, the line between right and wrong blurred further still, I found myself grappling once more with feelings that were both thrilling yet fraught with danger. Then came another knock at the door, a soft rap this time followed by silence hanging heavily around me once more as anticipation bubbled beneath skin taut with anxiety. Taking a deep breath before answering, I opened it cautiously only to find him standing there looking unsure yet hopeful all at once, a reflection mirrored back at me from those very same depths swirling within us both. "Can we talk?" he asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper yet resonating deeply within me, the invitation hanging suspended between us like an unspoken promise cloaked in uncertainty. In that moment everything else faded away. All thoughts of guilt or fear dissipated, leaving only raw emotion laid bare before us both waiting patiently for acknowledgement. The air in the room was thick with unspoken words, a tension that clung to us like the humidity outside. I could see the conflict in his eyes, mirroring my own confusion and longing. We had crossed a line that blurred the boundaries of our relationship, and in that moment, I felt both exhilarated and terrified. As we sat on the edge of the bed, a silence enveloped us. The clock ticked steadily, each second amplifying the weight of our choices. I could hear the distant laughter from the festival outside, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling within me. What were we doing? The thrill of our connection was intoxicating, yet guilt gnawed at my insides like a persistent ache. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. "What happens now?" he asked softly, almost hesitantly. It was a question that hung heavily between us, demanding an answer I wasn't sure I could provide. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. The truth was that everything felt so fragile. One wrong move could shatter this delicate bubble we had created, an escape from reality that was as intoxicating as it was dangerous. Our shared moments had transformed from innocent laughter to something deeper, something uncharted. We spent hours talking about everything and nothing at all, our hopes, fears, and dreams blending together in a way that felt both liberating and suffocating. But now those conversations seemed trivial compared to what lay ahead. Suddenly, the door creaked open slightly as if sensing our turmoil. My heart raced at the sound. It could have been anyone, my husband returning unexpectedly or perhaps even another family member wandering in after an evening of festivities. The thought sent a jolt of panic through me. "We need to be careful," I urged quietly, glancing toward the door as if it might betray us at any moment. He nodded but didn't pull away. Instead, he took my hand in his, a gesture filled with warmth yet fraught with danger. "What if we just let it happen?" he suggested tentatively. The idea sent chills down my spine. Part of me wanted to succumb to this reckless desire, another part screamed for caution. We were standing on a precipice where one misstep could lead to disaster. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed down the hallway outside our room, a familiar sound that made my heart drop into my stomach. It was him. He had returned earlier than expected from his outing with friends. Panic surged through me as I caught his eye again, the urgency of our situation hitting home harder than ever before. "You have to go," I whispered urgently, pulling away just enough for him to understand. His expression faltered for a moment before determination set in. "Not without you," he insisted softly but firmly. I shook my head vehemently. There was no way we could risk being discovered now, not when everything hung by such a fragile thread. "Please," I pleaded quietly, urgency lacing every word. With one last lingering look filled with unspoken promises and regrets, he slipped out into the shadows of the hallway just as my husband entered our room with an air of casual nonchalance that felt utterly misplaced given what had just transpired between us. "Hey! You're still awake," he said cheerfully as if nothing were amiss while setting down his things on the dresser. I forced a smile onto my face despite feeling like an imposter in my own life, the facade of normalcy slipping over me like an ill-fitting garment. "Just couldn't sleep," I replied lightly while internally battling waves of anxiety crashing over me. He shrugged off his jacket and moved toward me with ease. It was comforting yet disconcerting all at once, this man who had been so oblivious now standing right before me while secrets loomed large between us like dark clouds ready to burst. "How was your night?" I asked casually even though every word felt heavy with implications, the weight of everything unsaid hanging thickly in the air between us. "Just went out for some drinks with friends," he replied casually as he rummaged through his bag for something, a mundane task that felt surreal given what had just happened moments ago behind closed doors. I nodded along but couldn't shake off the feeling of dread creeping up within me, every passing moment intensified by memories flooding back, the warmth of his touch lingering on my skin like an echo refusing to fade away completely despite being forced back into hiding by circumstance alone. As we settled into an uneasy rhythm for the evening, watching television and making small talk, I found myself lost in thoughts about what lay ahead. How long could this charade last? Would we be able to navigate these treacherous waters without capsizing? The night wore on slowly, time dragging its feet while shadows danced across walls illuminated only by flickering light from screens around us, each flicker reminding me how easily things could change if only someone looked closely enough beneath surface-level appearances where secrets lurked unseen yet palpable all around us waiting patiently for their moment to unravel everything. We spent the night together, not physically but emotionally tethered by shared experiences and whispers exchanged under dim lights. A fragile connection built upon desire wrapped tightly around guilt threatening always to pull apart at seams unless handled delicately. Morning came too soon, Sunlight streamed through curtains, casting bright rays across bedsheets, a stark contrast against lingering darkness still clinging stubbornly within me from last night's events unfolding quietly beneath layers hidden deep inside consciousness where fear battled desire relentlessly without resolution. As breakfast approached, a mundane ritual meant for families gathered together, I found myself dreading what lay ahead. Conversations filled with pleasantries masking truths lurking beneath surfaces where shadows waited patiently for their chance at exposure once more. The morning sun poured through the window, illuminating the room with a brightness that felt almost accusatory. I sat at the small table, nervously stirring my coffee as the familiar sounds of family life unfolded around me. The laughter of my husband and stepson drifted in from the other room, mingling with the scent of bacon sizzling in the kitchen. Each sound seemed to amplify the tension coiling tightly within me, a reminder of last night's transgressions that now felt like an indelible stain on my conscience. I glanced at my stepson, who was seated across from me, his expression a mix of innocence and something deeper that we both dared not name. He caught my eye briefly before looking down at his plate, and for a moment, it felt as if we were suspended in a bubble where time held no meaning. But reality intruded quickly. I could hear my husband's footsteps approaching, and with them came an overwhelming sense of dread. "Good morning," he called out cheerfully as he entered the room. I forced a smile, but it felt like a mask slipping over my face. The warmth in his voice contrasted sharply with the cold knot tightening in my stomach. He kissed me on the cheek, an innocent gesture that now felt loaded with unspoken words. As we sat together for breakfast, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, not just by him but by our shared history that loomed large between us. My husband spoke animatedly about plans for the day, his enthusiasm palpable. "There's a festival happening downtown. We should check it out after breakfast," he suggested. "Sounds good," I replied absently, trying to focus on his words while fighting against an internal tide pulling me away from him. My stepson nodded in agreement, but I could see flickers of uncertainty in his eyes as he glanced between us. After breakfast, we decided to head out to explore the festival. The streets were alive with vibrant colors and sounds. Local artisans displayed their crafts while musicians played lively tunes that echoed through the air like laughter itself. Yet amidst this joyous chaos, I felt increasingly detached from everything around me. As we wandered through stalls filled with handmade jewelry and art pieces reflecting local culture, my mind drifted back to our secret moments, the way our lips met under dim lights and how those stolen kisses had ignited something within me that had long been dormant. Guilt began to gnaw at me again. It was a relentless companion reminding me of what was at stake. "Are you okay?" My stepson's voice broke through my reverie. He stood beside me now, concern etched across his face. "I'm fine," I replied too quickly, forcing another smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "You seem distracted." His honesty was disarming. It made me want to pull him close yet push him away all at once. "I've just got a lot on my mind," I admitted softly, glancing around to ensure no one was paying attention to us. "Family stuff." He nodded slowly but didn't press further. Instead, he looked down at his hands clasped together nervously, a gesture so unlike him that it made my heart ache slightly for him. "Can we talk later?" he asked quietly as we moved towards a booth selling local delicacies. "Sure," I replied without thinking about what those words would mean for both of us later on. As we continued exploring the festival together, my husband leading us from one booth to another, I couldn't shake off an unsettling feeling creeping into my thoughts like shadows stretching across the ground as evening approached. The laughter around us felt foreign. Every smile exchanged seemed tinged with something darker lurking just below its surface. Eventually, we found ourselves near a quieter corner of the festival where fewer people roamed about. My stepson leaned against a wooden railing overlooking a small pond filled with lily pads and goldfish darting beneath its surface. "I don't know how you do it," he said suddenly, breaking the silence between us. "Do what?" I asked curiously while glancing sideways at him. Pretend everything is fine. His voice trembled slightly as if he were revealing something too raw for daylight yet necessary all at once. I'm not pretending, I replied defensively before catching myself. What did honesty mean anymore? I just try to keep things together. He turned to face me fully then, a vulnerability shining through his eyes that took my breath away for reasons beyond mere attraction or forbidden feelings lingering beneath our shared history. It feels like everyone has secrets they're hiding. My heart raced as silence enveloped us both. There was so much unsaid hanging in the air between us, a fragile thread connecting our fates together against all odds. Just then, my phone buzzed insistently in my pocket, a jarring interruption shattering this momentary connection we'd forged amidst chaos surrounding us outside those walls built by familial ties and societal expectations alike. I fished it out reluctantly. The name flashing across the screen sent chills down my spine. It was someone from home calling unexpectedly during this precarious time away from everything familiar yet suffocatingly routine-bound back there. "Excuse me," I murmured hurriedly before stepping away towards some nearby trees lining this secluded area where shadows danced playfully against sunlight filtering through leaves overhead, a stark contrast against turmoil brewing inside me like storm clouds gathering ominously above horizons unseen. As soon as I answered, the voice on other end carried news heavy enough to crush even strongest resolve. "We need to talk about your husband." The words hung ominously in midair like an uninvited guest crashing into our fragile world built upon whispers shared beneath moonlit skies. In that moment, everything shifted irrevocably once more. Choices made under cover of night threatened unraveling threads connecting lives intricately woven together over years spent navigating labyrinthine paths woven by love lost somewhere along way amid laughter fading into silence. What lay ahead remained uncertain. But one thing lingered undeniably clear: whatever happened next would change everything forevermore. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows over the colorful market stalls that lined the streets of the small town. The vibrant hues of fresh produce and handmade crafts seemed to mock the turmoil brewing within me. I wandered through the bustling crowd, trying to drown out the noise of my thoughts. The festival was in full swing, music wafting through the air, laughter mingling with the scent of spices. Yet, I felt detached, like a ghost drifting through a world full of life. I spotted my stepson near a booth selling handcrafted jewelry. He was examining a necklace, his brow furrowed in concentration. I approached him slowly, hesitant to break the spell of quiet contemplation he seemed to be under. When he looked up and met my gaze, a flicker of something passed between us, an unspoken acknowledgement of what had transpired in our shared hotel room. "Do you like it?" I asked, gesturing toward the necklace. He shrugged, a hint of uncertainty shadowing his features. "It's okay." I could sense his discomfort. My heart sank as I realized that our secret was weighing heavily on him too. "We don't have to do this," I said softly, searching for reassurance in his eyes. He sighed deeply and ran a hand through his hair. I don't know what we are doing anymore." His voice was barely above a whisper, lost amidst the festival's cacophony. A knot tightened in my stomach. The thrill that had once ignited my spirit now felt like an anchor pulling me down into murky waters. "I didn't mean for it to get complicated," I confessed. His gaze shifted away from mine as he spoke again, more resolutely this time. "But it is complicated. We're family." The weight of those words hung between us like an uninvited guest at a family gathering. Family, what did that even mean anymore? My husband had become a stranger to me. Our marriage felt more like an obligation than a partnership. But here we were, tangled in something forbidden yet intoxicating. A sudden burst of laughter from nearby drew my attention back to the festivities around us. Families danced together under strings of twinkling lights while vendors called out their wares with enthusiastic voices that echoed joyfully against the backdrop of evening stars beginning to twinkle overhead. Maybe we should just enjoy tonight, I suggested lightly, attempting to mask the tension that crackled between us. He nodded slowly but didn't seem convinced. As we moved through the market together, I caught sight of familiar faces, friends from years past who had come to celebrate with their families. They waved cheerfully at me as if nothing was amiss in my life. A pang of guilt twisted inside me. How could they know about this hidden chapter? "Let's get some food," I proposed, hoping distraction would ease our shared discomfort. We found ourselves at a food stall selling tacos bursting with flavor and color, just like everything else around us tonight. As we munched on our meals amidst laughter and chatter from nearby tables, I couldn't shake off the feeling that this moment was fleeting, that soon enough reality would come crashing back down around us. "I think your dad is coming back tomorrow," he said suddenly, breaking into my thoughts. The mention of my husband sent another wave of unease rippling through me. "Yeah," I replied cautiously. "We need to talk about this, whatever it is," he insisted firmly but quietly as if afraid someone might overhear him. My heart raced at his words. An ultimatum hung heavily in the air between us, a decision looming just beyond reach that could alter everything irrevocably. "I'm not sure how," I admitted honestly, feeling vulnerable under his gaze. He looked away for a moment before returning his attention back to me with intensity in his eyes, a mixture of fear and longing swirling within them. "We can't keep pretending." The festival lights flickered above us as if echoing our own uncertainty about what lay ahead, an uncertain path leading into darkness or perhaps toward clarity we desperately needed but feared finding. As night fell deeper around us and music faded into murmurs beneath starlit skies stretching endlessly above, the moment felt charged with possibility yet heavy with consequence, a fragile balance teetering on an edge neither one dared cross without knowing where it might lead them next. After finishing our meal, we wandered deeper into the heart of festivities where laughter rang out like bells chiming joyfully against muted whispers hiding secrets beneath every smile exchanged among friends reveling together obliviously unaware. But not us, not anymore. Every glance exchanged between us carried weight now, a reminder that choices made could ripple outward affecting all those intertwined within our lives. As we strolled past booths filled with handmade trinkets and local artisans showcasing their crafts, I felt both exhilarated by freedom yet shackled by doubts gnawing at my conscience urging clarity over chaos. Then suddenly, a familiar figure appeared across the square, my husband stepping out from behind a crowd seemingly drawn toward us by some invisible thread connecting hearts once joined now frayed by distance created through silence. Panic surged within me as apprehension clawed at every thought racing through my mind, the reality crashing down upon me like waves against jagged rocks threatening destruction. Would he see? Would he know? "Your dad," my voice faltered as dread settled deep within me suffocating all semblance rational thought left lingering behind. "I'll handle it," he murmured resolutely glancing toward where my husband stood oblivious surrounded by laughter and warmth radiating from those gathered close. But could any semblance handling truly exist when everything hung delicately balanced on such precarious ground? And then there it was, the moment where paths diverged irrevocably leading toward unknown destinies waiting patiently beyond sight hidden beneath layers emotions concealed beneath fragile facades worn daily. In that instant, I understood one undeniable truth: whatever happened next would irrevocably change everything forevermore. The door swung open, revealing my husband, his expression a mixture of shock and betrayal. The air hung heavy with unspoken words as time seemed to freeze. I stood there, heart racing, caught in a web of choices that had spun out of control. "Grace," he finally managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. The name felt foreign, like an echo from a different life. I glanced at my stepson beside me, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. In that moment, the fragile bubble we had created shattered into a million pieces. "Dad, it's not what it looks like," he stammered. But the truth loomed larger than any excuse we could muster. My husband took a step forward, disbelief etched on his face. "Then what is it?" he demanded, anger and hurt threading through his tone. "You're kissing him in our hotel room. What am I supposed to think?" I opened my mouth to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. How could I explain the complexity of feelings that had spiraled beyond reason? The loneliness that had driven me to this point? Instead, silence enveloped us, a heavy blanket stifling any hope for understanding. "I can't believe this," he continued, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. "After everything we've been through, how could you do this?" His disappointment pierced through me like a dagger. Memories of happier times flashed before my eyes, family dinners filled with laughter, vacations spent exploring new places together. Yet here we were, teetering on the edge of an abyss created by secrets and desires. "I didn't mean for it to happen," I finally said, my voice trembling slightly. "It just did." "That's your excuse?" His gaze shifted between us as if trying to comprehend how two people he trusted could betray him in such a profound way. The weight of shame settled heavily on my shoulders. "I've felt invisible for so long," I admitted quietly, unable to meet his eyes any longer. "I thought maybe—" "Thought what?" he interrupted sharply. "That you could find solace in your stepson? That this was some kind of solution?" My heart sank further at the realization that there was no easy way out of this mess we had created together, the three of us caught in an intricate dance of emotions gone wrong. "I wanted to feel seen again," I confessed finally. "I wanted connection." He shook his head slowly as if trying to process everything at once. "You think this is connection? This is destruction." The tension crackled around us as unshed tears threatened to spill over. My stepson stood frozen beside me, his presence felt both comforting and suffocating all at once. "Maybe you should both leave," my husband said suddenly, his voice cold and distant now, a stark contrast to the warmth we once shared as a family. "What?" My stepson's voice broke through the silence in disbelief. "I said leave. I can't look at either of you right now." The finality in his tone sent shivers down my spine. It felt like standing on the edge of a precipice with no safety net below. "I'll go," I said quietly, feeling an overwhelming urge to protect my stepson from further hurt even if it meant sacrificing myself in the process. "No." He reached out for me as panic flickered across his face. "You don't have to do this." But deep down, I knew what needed to happen next, what would be best for everyone involved, even if it meant tearing apart everything we had built together over the years. "We'll talk later," I murmured softly without looking back as I stepped toward the door. As I walked away from that room filled with memories now tainted by betrayal and sorrow, uncertainty loomed large over every thought swirling within me. Where would I go? What would happen next? Outside in the cool evening air of New Mexico's small-town streets filled with lively chatter from nearby festivals celebrating life while mine unraveled into chaos, I paused briefly beneath strings of twinkling lights illuminating faces full of joy and laughter around me. Forcing myself forward despite feeling utterly lost within, it was time for clarity amidst confusion. Perhaps some answers lay waiting beyond those vibrant market stalls lined with colorful crafts and spices wafting through warm breezes inviting exploration into unfamiliar territories. As night descended upon us like a shroud enveloping secrets hidden beneath its veil, I wandered aimlessly until reaching one local landmark overlooking vast landscapes stretching endlessly before me, a place where memories lingered like echoes whispering truths long buried beneath layers of fear and regret. Standing there alone against twilight skies painted shades orange mingling with deep indigo, I contemplated everything that led me here. The choices made along winding paths intersecting unexpectedly leading toward uncharted territories fraught with consequences yet unseen. A moment stretched infinitely as thoughts swirled around questions begging for answers. What did love truly mean? Was it worth sacrificing family bonds built over years just for fleeting moments fueled by desire? Suddenly footsteps approached behind me breaking through reverie, turning slowly expecting familiarity instead met by surprise. There stood my husband silhouetted against fading light, casting shadows across our past lives intertwined intricately, now frayed at edges, unraveling quickly. Grace, his voice held uncertainty laced with something else. Was it regret? Longing? Or perhaps both mingled together, forming complex emotions battling within him just as they did within me? Before either one could speak further, the ground beneath shifted ever so slightly, reminding us both nothing remained solid anymore. Not love nor trust nor family ties, once thought unbreakable, now hanging precariously above uncertain futures, waiting patiently below, ready to catch whatever fell next. And then came clarity, not resolution but rather recognition, standing firmly between us, a choice awaited, demanding attention amidst chaos unfolding all around. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cobbled streets of the small town. I stood at the edge of a local landmark, a weathered stone archway that had witnessed countless stories over the years. The air was thick with the scent of roasted chilies and the distant sound of laughter from a nearby festival. Yet, I felt detached, as if observing life from behind a glass wall. With every passing moment, the gravity of my choices pressed heavier against my chest. The kiss we shared lingered like a bittersweet memory, both intoxicating and suffocating. I had crossed lines I never thought I would approach, and now I was left to navigate this tangled web of emotions alone. A familiar figure approached me from behind, the stepson whose presence had ignited this whirlwind in my heart. His footsteps echoed softly on the stones, each step a reminder of our secret moments together. I turned to face him, searching for clarity in his eyes. Instead, uncertainty reflected back at me. "What are we doing?" he asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated before answering, feeling the weight of his question settle between us like an uninvited guest. "I don't know," I finally replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. His brow furrowed slightly as he stepped closer. "This can't go on forever." I nodded slowly, knowing he was right. The thrill of our stolen moments had begun to feel more like a burden than an escape. I glanced back toward the hotel where my husband stayed, oblivious or perhaps willfully ignorant, while we danced along this precarious edge. "What do you want?" he pressed gently. The question hung in the air like smoke from the street vendors' grills wafting past us. Did I want to continue this affair? Did I want to confront my husband? Or was it time to step back and reclaim my life? "I want to feel alive again," I confessed, surprising myself with that admission. He looked away for a moment, processing my words as if they were foreign objects he couldn't quite grasp. "But at what cost?" His question pierced through me like an arrow aimed straight at my heart. What cost indeed? The thought of losing everything, a family built on years of shared experiences, terrified me more than any fleeting moment of passion ever could. Just then, laughter erupted from behind us as festival-goers spilled into view, brightly colored dresses twirling and children chasing one another with gleeful abandon. For an instant, I felt a pang of longing for those simpler days when joy didn't come laced with guilt or fear. "Let's go back," he suggested suddenly, breaking through my reverie. Back? My heart raced at his words. Part of me wanted to flee while another part yearned for connection amidst this chaos. "Yes." He stepped closer again, urgency coloring his tone. "We can't keep pretending." As we walked toward the hotel hand in hand, an act so simple yet fraught with consequences, I felt both exhilarated and terrified by what lay ahead. Each step echoed memories of our secret rendezvous while simultaneously reminding me that reality awaited us just beyond those doors. Inside the hotel lobby was quiet, only muffled voices filtered through closed doors leading to rooms filled with families enjoying their vacations. But our sanctuary, the room where everything had changed, loomed ahead like an ominous cloud ready to unleash its storm. As we reached our door, uncertainty gripped me anew. What awaited us inside? More stolen moments? Or would we finally confront what lay beneath our fragile facade? Before I could reach for the handle, it swung open abruptly. A figure stood silhouetted against the dim light spilling into the hallway, my husband. Shock washed over me as time seemed to freeze in that instant. The world outside faded away entirely as reality crashed down around us like thunder after lightning strikes. "What's going on here?" he demanded sharply, eyes narrowing as they darted between us with disbelief etched across his face. My heart raced. Panic surged within me like wildfire threatening to consume everything in its path. We were just. But no words came forth that could explain this tangled mess without unraveling everything we had built together over years filled with laughter and love, or so I thought until now. Just what? His voice rose slightly. Anger mixed with confusion painted across his features made it clear he wouldn't accept anything less than honesty now staring him squarely in the face. In that moment, a split second stretched into eternity. I saw paths diverging before me, one leading toward honesty and potential devastation while another promised safety but continued deception cloaked beneath familiar comforts. "Tell him," my stepson urged quietly beside me, a plea wrapped tightly within desperation tinged by fear. And suddenly all too clear was how precarious this situation had become for both of us, caught within its web without any way out but forward into whatever consequences awaited us next. And then came clarity, not resolution but rather recognition standing firmly between us, all three intertwined now facing an uncertain future where love and loyalty collided head-on amid chaos unfolding all around. In that charged silence filled only by unspoken truths hanging heavy above our heads, waiting patiently below ready to catch whatever fell next.